Hey everyone, it's Elaine. If you're preparing for the Google Certified Educator Level 2 test, you'll need to know how to create a blog using Google Blogger. This short video, well, at least I hope it will be short, will explain the basics of building a blog in Blogger. So let's get blogging. If you've never built one before, when you go to blogger.com, you might see a page that looks like this. If you've ever built a blog before, when you go to blogger.com, you might see something that looks more like this. Either way, you're going to end up in the same spot. So it might ask you, if you've never done it before, to sign in to choose your account before it lets you create. But once you've chosen your account, you'll click on Create Blog. That takes you to a box that asks you to name your blog. So that's the very first thing you need to do. Now, there's lots of possibilities for blogs, especially in this year 2020 for educators. If you wanted to blog with your colleagues about the challenges of remote teaching or teaching during a pandemic, boy, there's lots of material there. Because this is just an example, I'm going to just blog about something related to me. So I'm going to blog about my farm, which my husband and I call Black Snake Farm because we have lots of snakes. So that'll be the name of my blog. And I click on Next. So this part is important. I have to determine what my URL web address is going to be, and it can't already be an address that's being used. It can't be taken. So this can actually be time consuming if you're making a real blog to come up with an address that isn't already taken. So if I type in Black Snake Farm, I feel sure that'll be taken. So in a second, I'll get some red lettering that says, nope, sorry, that address is not available. So I could add more things to it. I'm just going to put my last name, which I really don't think will be taken. So then it's going to tell me, yes, this blog address is available, and I will save. Then it will bring me in to the editing area where I'm ready to start building my blog. It's actually just created my blog, and I could start posting right away if I wanted. But there's some things I need to know about how to set up my blog in the way that I want it to be. Firstly, I want to choose a theme for my blog because, of course, I want it to look cool. So over on the left is the menu, and if I click on theme, you'll notice that several themes come up, and I can just choose. So I haven't tried all of these, certainly. I'm just going to randomly choose this one, picture window. Here's what I've learned about this theme area. So it seems like you should customize and then apply, but if you do that, you get caught in this infinite loop of weirdness. So applying is better to do first. Then a box pops up. Over here, you'll see that it'll say your theme was applied successfully, and then you can go into customize. It's a lot simpler that way. And of course, customization means that you can change a few things about your theme. If this were a real blog, I would most likely change the image to my actual farm. I could choose different colors, just change the lettering here from orange to whatever color I wanted. So I'll just make a change here so I can show you how to save. So the first couple of times I was in this site, I kept trying to find where to save this because it never would keep the changes that I had made. And then I realized it's down here in the very bottom right. It's very hard to see. So there's a tiny disk down here. So if you click that, it will save the changes to your theme. And then you can just use the back arrow to go back to the menu area so you can keep working on your blog. So a super important area, especially building your skills for the level 2 test, is going to be located in settings. So if you're building an educational blog and if it involves students at all, even if it just involves your colleagues, you want it to be regulated in a way that is safe for kids. And so that's super important. Inside here, you could read for yourself. There's tons of things we could dig into, but I don't want to get too detailed because you can certainly read this on your own. You can add a description of your blog if you want, and if your blog is visible on search engines, that description will show up. But if you're making an educational blog and it involves students, you probably don't want that to be visible to search engines. So that is your choice to tick on or off. And of course, you can see here's your address. You can use a custom domain if you're serious about blogging. And the permissions area is really important, and you'll need to be familiar with that. So to invite authors, for example, if you wanted to invite a student or students or colleagues, this is where you do it. So you just type in their address. I'm just going to type in my personal address so I don't freak anybody out by inviting them to a blog. And I'll send that to myself. It's as simple as that. So every person that you type in there will get an invitation. You can also invite custom readers to your blog, and this is where you do that. So you can determine how many posts will appear on your main page. You could change that. The default is 7. And of course, blogs are typically set up in reverse chronological order where the most recent posts appear at the top. The comments, this is another important area. So you decide who can comment. So by default, users with Google accounts can comment. If this is an educational blog, you might want to close it down to where just people who are members of the blog can comment. You certainly wouldn't want anonymous people commenting. So this is where you can change that. Also, comment moderation. So certainly if students are commenting on each other's posts and things like that, you're going to want to have comment moderation so that you can see the comments that are being made before they go live on the internet. By default, that moderation is not in place. I'm assuming that if you choose sometimes, you might get other choices, but if students are involved, I would say pick always and save. You can also decide like what happens to posts older than 14 days. Do you get an email about it to moderate, that kind of thing? You can make decisions. Here's one, this is kind of important too. So this word verification CAPTCHA. So by default, it's ticked on, and what that means, and I'm sure you've seen CAPTCHAs on the internet, it's those things that make you type in a series of letters and numbers before you can go somewhere or do something. And these are designed to keep out bots and to prevent your site from being spammed. If you're not super concerned about bots spamming your blog, then you can take this off so that your commenters don't have to put in a word verification in order to comment. And then you have some decisions you can make about lots of other things, time zones, formatting, email, all these things. Manage blog is a place, just FYI, where you can remove your blog. It's kind of deep in here. So if you're practicing with blogs and you don't want to have a bunch of useless blogs that are just practice, you can remove them. And that's pretty much it for settings. So you can explore that on your own. And then once you've finished with your settings, you're ready to come out and maybe start posting. Before we start posting, a couple of other things in the menu here. So pages, they're like static areas where you might want to include more information. So if you added a page, like an about page for your blog, something besides just the page where people see the posts. But if you do create pages, they won't be visible to the end user until you make them visible under layouts. So this is something I've learned through trial and error, just FYI. So let's make a post. All right, so when I click on new post, you'll notice that I get a box where I can post. And first I have to give my post a title. This is my very first post on my blog, so I'm going to call it Black Snake Blogging, just to try to be cute. And because I knew I was going to do this, I've already written a post, already typed it in Google Docs. And that's actually not a bad idea for you when you're making a post, because if you're typing in this interface and you have an internet interruption, I'm fairly certain you would lose everything you've typed. So it's not a bad idea to pre-make your posts in Google Docs and then just use Control C and Control V to copy them over. So here's my first post. I think I would also like to include an image in my post. So let's talk about how to do that. And that's something that you very well might have to do on the test. It's pretty obvious that I go up here to insert image, but look at my options. So notice that Blogger does not directly interface with things like Google Drive. So it's not part of the G Suite for Education group. Blogger was mainly made for consumer use, but it does have lots of educational implications. So I have some choices that don't include Drive, but I do have Google Photos, and I'm fairly certain I have a nice snake picture in my Google Photos. So I'm going to go there. So it's easy for me to go there and retrieve a photo. Here's a snake in a tree. This is in our backyard. So we often have snakes that hang out in trees, which is kind of cool. So if I click on the picture, I can then rearrange where it goes and notice how the text wraps around my picture. I can also insert things like videos. So I'm going to go to the bottom of my post and then I'm going to click on Insert Video. Notice my two choices are to upload from my computer or to go to YouTube. If I click on YouTube, it will default automatically to videos that I have uploaded to YouTube. So these are all videos that live in my channel, my YouTube channel, but I can also search for videos. So if I type in black snake, see what I find. And of course, I would never ever put a video on a site if it were for education if I had not watched the video, but just because I already know what's here because I've looked at it before, then I would put it there. Also, there's some other little things inside this site. For example, the quote feature. So if I highlight something and I click quote text, it kind of moves it off by itself. So that's a way that I can kind of create some interest on my page. I can also do this insert jump break, which will place a line in here, but when I go to preview, you won't see a line, but you'll see a space between the text and my video. So you can play around, and of course you can change colors. It's a pretty rudimentary editor. It's not fancy, but you don't really need fancy. You want your blog and your site to be clean. So when I'm ready, I can actually preview this. If I'm feeling pretty good about it, I'm going to go over to preview. And Google actually recently made some updates to Blogger and some improvements. So I can now see, very much like Google Sites, I can see what my blog looks like on several different devices. So if I want to see what it looks like on a desktop, this is it. A tablet, it would look like this. On a smartphone, so I can see that it's scrolling a little on a smartphone, but if I flip or rotate the screen on a smartphone, still scrolling a little bit. So I might want to go back into my theme and make some adjustments, move some things around. So this is really helpful that I can see what that looks like. Notice it also opened my preview in a new tab. So to get back to the edit mode, I can simply click on the other tab. So if I'm feeling pretty good about this, I can publish it. And I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. And it asks me to confirm. So that makes it live on the internet. And so the people that I've invited will be able to see it. And people will be able to comment if they belong to the blog because I've restricted it. So here's my first post. Yay. And oh, labels. Let's talk about labels quickly. So notice now that I've posted, when I hover in this area, I can revert this back to a draft if I need to work on it. But labels, I can apply labels to this post. So labels are categories, and they're like tags. So they're really designed to help a user navigate your blog easily. They're not really meant for search engines. It's more for users of your blog. So if I click here, I can apply some labels. So farm, I'm going to separate by comma, snakes. These are two things that apply to this particular post. And then you'll notice that these labels appear here. And when we actually view the blog, and let's do that right now, I will show you where those labels appear. So here's what my blog looks like, my real actual blog. And notice here is the address. So I could copy that address and I could send it to people. Of course, they wouldn't be able to see it if they weren't, depending on what my settings are. But here's my labels. So as I build this blog, if there are other posts that involve snakes, then an end user could click on that label and find all the posts easily that have that subject matter. So that's what labels are for. So here's my blog. I just made this. This is looking pretty good. So a person, if they wanted to comment, if they wanted to, oh, here's my cool snake picture. Whoa, scroll back up. Oh, it's in both places. That's kind of interesting. So if I wanted to comment, I can click where the comments area is, and then there's a place where I can make a comment, and then I can publish my comment. So here's my blog. This was so easy to make. I hope you will try this site. It's actually a lot of fun, and it's really easy to use.